Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gender and Development. And today is lesson 5. The date is 27th of December 2023. The topic for discussion is Gender and Economic Development, into bracket Kayayei, or subtitle Kayayei. Viewers would be assisted or reminded of what gender and its macroeconomics are. Macroeconomics in terms of unemployment, GDP, and inflation. Then gender and financial stability, and then how to reduce income inequalities. The name is H. Kwame Afagro. All right. Post-COVID has given the world a second thought. Besides post-COVID, 2021, 2022, we're now having war in Ukraine and Russia, and then Israel and Gaza. The Syria one is still ongoing. However, it has given a second thought to the World Economic Forum 2023 to rethink about equality or inequality. It says that what? The gender economic gap will take 130 years from today to be even, or for a breach to have been reached, or equality attained. Meaning that we're talking of the year 2122, 2122, when by then most likely I would have been gone, but this video may last as far as YouTube is concerned. So then, if that be the case, then it makes it imperative for us to understand what gender and economic development is. Once we're talking of gender, we're talking of an economic development, we're talking of the disadvantage or the non-mainstream. Let me put it, the non-mainstream, meaning that men are the mainstream and the women are the non-mainstream. So they are the disadvantaged. They are those who have been marginalized. But even that, we look at the strata when it comes to economic development of developing countries. This studies is for developing countries. So then unemployment, post-COVID unemployment was recorded to be unemployment has affected women twice as much as men, meaning that 64 million women have been thrown out of jobs or rendered jobless due to COVID. Means that there is a problem. That should tell us there's a problem. So then, whilst we're looking at what we call gender and its macroeconomics, as we've mentioned, then we're going to be looking at even in employment. You would notice, or you would have been informed or be informed that a lot of our women are in informal sector. Meanwhile, our universities are churning out more women than men at a ratio of 1.04 to a ratio of men 1. A little more women are churned out of the university. Meanwhile, when it comes to employment, women are underemployed when it comes to senior managerial levels. Look at Nigeria, for instance. We have only 30.28% in senior managerial level as of last year. Then Ghana has 26.7 thereabout in women in senior managerial roles. South Africa has 29.24%. Indonesia has 37%. South Korea has 22% by and large. Brazil has 38.3% women in senior managerial level. Then Costa Rica has 45.9% in senior managerial level, which is fine for Costa Rica. Okay, so it means that though we are graduating and training a lot more of women at the tertiary level, when it comes to employment and job placement, women are found marginalized. So where are women in employment? Most of them are in the informal sector. When you get to the informal sector, what we mean is, one, those who are not properly captured, they are unregistered, unincorporated or non-incorporated organizations. That's where they find themselves in, and they may not be known by social security and insurance systems, but the taxman doesn't forget them. That's the funny bit. The taxman does not forgive or forget the women in the informal sector or anyone working in the informal sector. However, when it comes to social security, they are forgotten in most developing countries. So that is a bit of a worry. In the informal sector is made up of artisans, domestic workers, street vendors, waste pickers, laborers, traders, um, agric workers, especially agric workers in developing countries. Most of them, and then domestic workers who are paid or unpaid. We find that they are not properly captured. Even the disaggregation of data, meaning that how data is collected on them and how you partition the data and look at, say, maybe agric, then you look at, say, maybe those in welding, those who are in mechanics, those who are electricians, auto mechanics and all that. You cannot find that easily because data is not there, because that you need to disaggregate it, so that you need to separate it, separate data. You gather how many of them are in agric, how many of them are in mechanics, how many of them are in electricals or automobile, how many of them are in painting, how many are there in construction and manufacturing. If you have this data, then you can separate it and understand it well. That's disaggregation of data. Unfortunately, we don't have that, or we have not evolved to that level yet. Okay, so but we know that the informal sector, the world informal sector, is about 60% of the labor force. 60% of the labor force. In Ghana, for instance, 80% of the labor force work in the informal sector and are likely to be contributing 67 billion US dollars to the GDP PPP per capita. GDP PPP, gross domestic product purchasing power parity, meaning that the gross domestic, we now have brought it, UN or World Bank has brought, or IMF has brought it to the level of a comparative currency level. So the GDP is known and flattened on all based on the currency, the international dollar. So it has brought all countries to a certain point where you can then compare gross domestic products. All right, that's gross domestic product purchasing power parity, PPP in short. That of Nigeria, GDP PPP, is $1.2 trillion for a year. Then that of India is $6.5 trillion for a year. So it means that the informal sector alone contributes so much to the economic growth of the country. So I said, look, when we're looking at macroeconomics, employment, we're looking at inflation, we're looking at GDP. So we've talked about GDP, we've talked about the senior managerial level of employment, we're talking about the informal sector. The informal sector mostly has a history where there's enough urban migration, there's enough rural migration to the urban centers. Rural migration to the urban centers, and that's where the major drift is coming from, because they're all looking for greener pastures. The women follow their husbands into the cities looking for greener pastures. If their husbands get employed, it's likely that some of them will get employed in the formal sector, say the garment factory, the apparel factories, the clothing lines, and stuff like that. Those factories, they employ a lot of women, maybe massive catering sector. They employ them and they pay their taxes and pay their social security for them. They get them employment letters, and those are in the formal sector. But the informal sector, a lot of our women work in the informal sector, even if they come to the urban areas from the rural communities where it's farming or fishing, and they come to the urban centers, they still find themselves in the informal sector. And nothing is as disturbing as that of Ghana's informal sector, where we have what we call Kayayei. Kayayei is female head porters. Kayayei is female head porters. Let's pause for a break. Welcome back to the session on gender and development, lesson 5. And the title for today, or the topic for today, is gender and economic development. I'm taking my time to go through it, and it's Kayayei. These discussions are such that any terminology we use, we explain it, so anyone viewing it would understand. All right, and then the inscriptions are on the screen, so you can also follow as well. All right, so we're talking of Kayayei. There's a phenomenon in Ghana called Kayayei, which is what? Female head porters. Female head porters. If you have a lot of people entering, the females entering the city, and all they can find, the easiest job they can find is being head porters or Kayayei. It means that the cost is most likely to be what? Resource restriction, and of course a tight resource restriction, because they are in for greener pastures. We have teenagers amongst them, we have minors amongst them, and we have women who have women amongst them, and we have women who have babies at their back and have this aluminum pan on their heads, and that's where they carry loads that are heavier than their bodies, maybe twice as heavy or 3 times as heavy as their body weight. And that is problematic. Who are the patronizers? Most domestic homes, and the actors are women and female head porters. Or the actors, there are two actors here, that's women and female head porters, that's women and then Kayayei. It means that the two actors are all women, and it becomes a moral issue where, or ethical issue, where women should see themselves abused, subject themselves into such dehumanizing conditions of abuse, if not slavery, in Ghana. It's about time Ghanaian women or female activists should get up and stop this Kayayei. Find alternative means of resource constraints that they are going through, such that they don't have to be head porters. There should be no Kayayeis in the world anymore, else we will not meet that the year 2122 or 2122 year income parity, income equality rather, income equality. We will not meet it. This should be of concern. The reason it should be of concern is that these ladies come from the northern part of Ghana and get to the southern sector to work as what? Head porters in markets. And then when women go shopping, their load that they will not give to their children to carry, they will give to these head porters or the Kayayei to carry. Some of them as young as 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Others, teenagers, 10, 11, 15, 12, who should have been in school, who are just graduated from secondary school, upper secondary school, or junior secondary school, have decided not to continue and need money to continue or move into another profession, but need money to move into a professional training, don't have it, so they get involved in this head portering or Kayayei business. Then others are mothers who have given birth, and you find some of them with babies at their back carrying heavy loads on their head, and it's a bit disturbing that the politicians in Ghana rather use them for political economics for their benefit, which is unethical. It's unethical. That process or that whole Kayayei business must be stopped in Ghana. Okay, that notwithstanding, there are a lot of women still in the informal sector who find themselves as self-employed micro businesses or small businesses. Very few can transcend to what? Medium-sized businesses, because they're in the informal sector and they are not known. They pay taxes, yet Social Security does not know them. They are not given Social Security, and that's also another problem. So bringing this whole issue of gender and financial stability into question. Financial stability has several definitions, by the way, but let's look at it. In developing countries, all those workers in the informal sector, especially the women in the informal sector involved in micro trade and small businesses, they are not known by the banks, and they cannot list their businesses on the stock market simply because they are unregistered or they are not cooperated institutions. So they cannot even get on the stock market. So financial stability is a problem. The other bit is that how do they access loans for their businesses? Maybe they are trading in tomato, pepper, and some of this small business, or trading in wares like gari, sugar, milk, and other items. They have a small shop or container shop, metal container shop that they are selling their wares, or they are from a corporation where there are 2 or 3 or 4 of them or 10 of them are into and trading in various ways. They have an eatery, which is normally called a chop bar, or a restaurant where they serve, and they do not, it's not registered. They have a pub where they sell drinks with eateries. Some are in beauty parlors. They are beauticians. They have their containers or their stores where they service the hair, the nails, and all that stuff. Even barbering, they do all that in addition. But these are all people not known, or only known to the taxman, but the government has marginalized them. Government services doesn't go to them. But government takes tax from them, but services doesn't go to them. And this is why we're getting concerned, in the sense that we're going to look at the redressal point. Apart from those ladies in senior managerial roles or informal sector, who are just few, majority are in the informal sector, and it's problematic. It's not that they are not highly educated, they are more highly educated than men from the university end. But most of the women get less jobs, are less employed, and that's problematic. Is it due to the leave, maternal, or when they give birth, maternity leave? Well, let's look at the maternity leave and paternity leave in some various countries. For instance, the paternity leave of Nigeria is 14 days, where men have to take time off to attend to their newly borns. Then that of maternity leave is 3 months. Okay, fine. Ghana is 5 days for paternity leave and 3 months for maternity leave. You want to wonder, what is it that you give 5 days for? Then Brazil also 5 days and then 4 months maternity leave, 5 days paternity leave and 4 months maternity leave. Indonesia is 2 days paternity leave and then 3 months maternity leave. India is 15 days paternity leave and then 6 months maternity leave. That is much better. It doesn't mean that the fact that they have 6 months, women have 6 months to attend to their newborn, so they shouldn't be seen in senior managerial level or should be employed. That is a non-starter of an argument, or a non-starter of a reasoning, because they are growing the future generation, implanting the morals or the community values in them, and see them grow before they get back to work. And so, what will be some of the remedial measures that we have to take, say, to bring about that equality in incomes? One of them, like I said earlier, is Kayayei must be banned from Ghana, such that it shouldn't spread to other countries. This head portering business, where you have minors, lactating mothers, pregnant women, and young girls, all involved, teenagers, involved in carrying load at commercial centers, markets in the cities, for other people who will not want their daughters to carry, but they want other people's daughters to carry, which is nothing more than modern day slavery, should be stopped. There must be legislation to stop it in Ghana, so it doesn't spread to other countries. The other part is it possible that once we're taking tax off those in the informal sector, we have to be thinking of discriminating in the tax, or we have to segregate the tax properly? These tax neutral conditions where it's gender non-biased is not appropriate, because second income earners, if it's a family of 2, male, female, husband and wife rather, and both of them are working, the second income earners lose when they pay taxes. They lose when they pay taxes. They spend more on care services and other services from their wages or salary, whilst a single person doesn't spend on that. So the taxman in various countries must look at that aspect of it. Look at that aspect where they can now give tax breaks. They can give incentives to second income earners, where they will put them in a certain tax category that will not be prohibitive. What about flexible working hours? It's also another. What about labor market duality, where we have categorized some people as very good employment and very poor jobs? Very good employment and very poor jobs. Women mostly are found in very poor jobs, whilst the men are found in very good employment. That itself is problematic. We have to rationalize it, because it's got to do with education, and we want the best. We want to rake all the incomes in. And if that be the case, marginalization of women in the informal sector must be regularized. Countries must regularize, developing countries must regularize their informal sector. They must formalize their informal sector, regularize their informal sector, so that the informal sector becomes regular and formal, where they are registered and given a card. Say in India, we have the e-shram. They are all registered. Those in the informal sectors are registered, and they are given benefits. They are not taking tax. Women in the e-shram is mostly for women in the informal sector. The e-shram, they give them benefit. They don't take from them, but you give them as an incentive. So developing countries could look at this Indian e-shram approach. All right. So then that's also another bit. I've talked about Kayayei being cancelled. Then we're looking at quality and affordable child care services. Countries must evolve a system where child care for mothers will be cheaper, but quality services will be given, and the taxman must give benefits to that aspect of it. Those are some of the remedial measures. The other one is upscaling. If the university training is not meant, or it's good, the university training is good. Let me put it this way. If the university training acquired by women is not sufficient to put them in senior managerial role or middle management role, then the training on the job training will do. So countries and private and public institutions must begin to put a lot of women in middle and senior managerial roles. And then flexible working hours can make it possible for women to be in a 50% senior managerial role and a 50% middle managerial role, because the world population for men and women is about the same. The name is H. Kwame Afaglo. Thank you. This lesson is to look for various, let's spot what's happening in our communities, identify them, and come up with remedial measures. And that's what I've done. One of them is the termination or the stoppage of Kayayei in Ghana. Thank you.